Jesus revealed the left-hand secret churches hide for 2,000 years. 3. Jesus exposed the sacred left hand, truth churches concealed. The demonization of the left hand. Have you ever stopped to question why left-handed children throughout history were beaten, restrained, and forced to use their right hands against their natural inclination? Why cultures across the world developed superstitions labeling the left side as sinister, evil, and cursed? This is not random prejudice or cultural accident. What I'm about to reveal will fundamentally challenge everything you have been taught about Christianity, spirituality, and the nature of divine power itself. For 2,000 years, religious institutions have systematically suppressed one of the most profound secrets that Jesus taught to his inner circle. And they did so because this knowledge threatens the very foundation of hierarchical religious control. The truth is that being left-handed is not a curse, but rather a mark of someone naturally aligned with receptive divine feminine energy. And the church could not allow this power to flourish in a patriarchal system designed to dominate rather than balance. The campaign against left-handedness began in earnest after the Council of Nicaea in 325, when Christianity was formalized as a state religion under Constantine. Prior to this political consolidation, early Christian communities preserved teachings about energetic balance, sacred polarity, and the divine feminine that existed in harmony with masculine principles. But as the church gained temporal power and merged with imperial authority, these balanced teachings became threatening. A religion-serving empire needs warriors, not mystics. It needs obedient followers, not empowered individuals who understand their own divine nature. The suppression of the left hand became symbolic of the larger suppression of feminine wisdom, intuitive knowing, and receptive spiritual capacities that could not be controlled by external religious authority. Historical documents reveal the systematic nature of this oppression. Medieval manuscripts instruct teachers and parents to bind children's left hands, to strike them when they reach with the left, to shame and punish any expression of this natural tendency. The Latin word for left is sinister, which became synonymous with evil in Western languages. The right hand was declared the hand of God, the hand of blessing, the only hand permitted for sacred acts. This linguistic programming runs so deep that even today we speak of right as correct and moral, while left is associated with clumsiness and wrongness. But this was not always so. Ancient mystery schools understood the sacred function of both hands, and Jesus himself taught this balance to those ready to receive deeper. The Gnostic Gospels, that were excluded from the canonical Bible, contain explicit references to the importance of balancing polarities, unifying opposites, and honoring both masculine and feminine principles within the individual spiritual seeker. These texts were systematically destroyed during the early centuries of Christian consolidation, with only fragments surviving in hidden libraries and secret collections. The discovery of the Nag Hammadi Library in 1945 brought some of these suppressed teachings back to light, revealing a Christianity radically different from the version institutionalized by Rome. In these texts, Jesus speaks openly about the sacred marriage of polarities, the divine feminine as essential to spiritual completion, and practices that activate both receptive and projective capacities within the awakening soul. Understanding this historical suppression is essential because it reveals that the demonization of the left hand was never about morality or divine commandment, but rather about power and control. When you reclaim the sacred function of your left hand, you reclaim access to receptive wisdom, intuitive knowing, and divine feminine energy that the patriarchal religious structure deliberately severed from mainstream spiritual practice. This is your birthright, and today you begin the process of restoration, the receptive power of the left hand. The human body is not merely biological machinery, but rather a sophisticated temple of consciousness, an energetic architecture designed to channel, transform, and express divine frequencies in material reality. Jesus taught this profound truth to his initiated disciples, explaining that we are created in the image of God, not in physical appearance, but in our capacity to embody both masculine and feminine divine principles. The ancient initiates who preserved these teachings understood what modern religion has forgotten. Spiritual power flows through polarity, and mastery requires the conscious integration of complementary energies rather than the domination of one over the other. Your two hands represent the most accessible manifestation of this sacred polarity, offering a practical entry point into understanding and working with the fundamental forces that structure all reality. The right hand channeled solar, projective, masculine energy. This is yang consciousness, the force of action, assertion, giving, and outward manifestation. When you reach out to give something, to create something, to push energy into the world, you naturally extend your right hand. This is the hand of the warrior, the builder, the achiever. It represents the conscious mind, logical thinking, linear progression, and the will to shape reality according to intention. Religious traditions that honor only the right hand inadvertently create spiritual systems based solely on assertion, command, and hierarchical power. They teach prayer as petition and demand rather than as receptive communion. They emphasize human will imposing itself on divine reality rather than human consciousness aligning with divine flow. But the left hand embodies an entirely different sacred function. It channels lunar, receptive, feminine energy. This is yin, consciousness, the force of reception, intuition, inner knowing, and allowing. When you receive a gift, when you open yourself to inspiration, when you listen deeply to another person or to the whispers of your soul, you are engaging left-hand energy, even if you are not physically using that hand. The left hand represents the subconscious mind, intuitive perception, non-linear wisdom, and the capacity to align with cosmic currents rather than forcing outcomes through willpower alone. This receptive capacity is not passive or weak as patriarchal programming would have you believe. Reception is the foundation of all true power because it allows you to access resources infinitely greater than your individual ego could generate. Jesus demonstrated perfect mastery of both polarities throughout his ministry. He acted decisively when action was required, overturning the tables of the money changers in the temple, speaking truth to corrupt authorities, and manifesting miracles through focused will and divine authority. But he also withdrew regularly into solitude for prayer and contemplation, opening himself receptively to guidance from the Father, listening rather than speaking, receiving rather than asserting. His famous statement that he does nothing of himself, but only what he sees the Father doing reveals the receptive foundation of his projective power. He received divine vision through his left-hand energy, then manifested that vision through his right-hand energy. This is the sacred circuit that creates genuine spiritual mastery rather than ego-driven religious performance. When you activate the receptive power of your left hand, you open a portal to dimensions of reality that cannot be accessed through assertion and control. Divine wisdom does not respond to demands but rather flows naturally into spaces of receptive openness. The greatest mystics across all traditions speak of spiritual realization coming through surrender, through letting go of personal will and allowing divine will to flow through them. This is left-hand wisdom. It teaches you to stop forcing, to stop trying to manipulate reality through sheer effort, and instead to align yourself with the natural currents of universal intelligence that already know the perfect path for your highest evolution and greatest contribution to the healing of this world. Hidden teachings in the Gospels. The Bible you hold in your hands represents a carefully curated selection of texts chosen by church councils with specific theological and political agendas. What was included tells one story, but what was deliberately excluded tells another story altogether, often contradicting the sanitized version that became Orthodox Christianity. The process of canonization was not divinely guided revelation, but rather a human political negotiation, with entire Gospels and teachings rejected not because they were false, but because they threatened the power structure being consolidated by emerging church hierarchy. The Gnostic Gospels discovered in the Egyptian desert near Nag Hammadi in 1945 revealed Christianity as it existed before Rome transformed it into an instrument of social control. And these texts speak openly about principles that mainstream religion has spent centuries suppressing. The Gospel of Thomas contains 114 sayings attributed directly to Jesus, many of which never appeared in the canonical Gospels. Loshon 22 is particularly relevant to our exploration of sacred polarity. Jesus states, "When you make the two into one, when you make the inner like the outer and the outer like the inner, and the upper like the lower, and when you make male and female into a single unity, so that the male will not be male nor the female be female, then you will enter the kingdom." This is explicit instruction about transcending duality through integration rather than through domination of one principle over another. Jesus is describing the alchemical marriage, teieros, gamos, the sacred union of complementary opposites that creates wholeness and grants access to divine consciousness. The Church rejected this teaching because it undermines the dualistic framework necessary for religious control. If you understand that heaven and earth, male and female, Spirit and matter are meant to be unified rather than separated into hierarchical opposition. Then you no longer need priestly intermediaries to mediate your relationship with the divine. You become your own priest, your own temple, your own direct channel to source consciousness. This is why Gnosticism was declared heretical and violently suppressed. Not because it was false, but because it was liberating. A population of spiritually empowered individuals cannot be controlled through fear, guilt, and promises of salvation in an afterlife. They recognize divinity within themselves here and now, rendering external religious authority obsolete. The Gospel of Philip, another Nag Hammadi text, speaks extensively about the bridal chamber, describing it as the holiest of holy places where the mystical marriage occurs. But this is not describing a physical wedding between human partners, though sacred sexuality can reflect this principle. The bridal chamber refers to the interior union of masculine and feminine principles within the individual soul, the integration of projective and receptive capacities, right hand and left hand, conscious and subconscious, will and surrender. When this inner marriage is consummated, the human being becomes a complete circuit capable of channeling divine power without distortion or blockage. This is the true meaning of being born again. Not joining a religion, but rather undergoing an alchemical transformation that reunites what has been artificially separated. Even within the canonical Gospels, traces of this teaching remain for those with eyes to see. When Jesus speaks of becoming like little children to enter the kingdom, he is pointing toward the integrated wholeness that children naturally embody before cultural conditioning forces them into rigid gender roles and energetic imbalances. When he teaches that the first shall be last and the last shall be first, he is describing the reversal of worldly values that honors receptivity as equally sacred as action. When he demonstrates his power through healing touch, he is using both hands, both principles, both polarities, working in concert to restore wholeness to fragmented beings. The teaching was always there, encoded in parable and action, waiting for those ready to perceive the deeper pattern beneath the surface story that satisfied them. Activating the left-hand portal. Knowledge divorced from practice remains sterile intellectual entertainment, satisfying the curious mind while leaving the soul untransformed. The mysteries were never meant to be merely understood, but rather embodied, integrated, lived as direct experience that fundamentally alters your relationship with reality itself. What I'm about to share has been guarded by initiatic orders for thousands of years, revealed only to those who demonstrated readiness through extended preparation, commitment, and proven capacity for discretion. But we have entered an era of accelerated awakening where these practices must become accessible to all sincere seekers, where the democratization of sacred knowledge becomes essential for collective evidence. The time of exclusively elite mysticism has passed. The time of mass initiation has arrived. Your left hand functions as a portal, an energetic gateway through which divine frequencies can enter your personal field and circulate through your entire system. Most people live their entire lives with this portal dormant, closed, or blocked by cultural conditioning and religious programming. The activation process begins with conscious attention, deliberately directing awareness to this neglected aspect of your energetic anatomy. Attention is the fundamental tool of consciousness, transformation. Whatever receives your sustained attention grows stronger, more vivid, more integrated into your lived experience. By placing focused awareness on your left hand, you begin awakening dormant energetic pathways and reestablishing connections to receptive divine feminine wisdom. The foundational meditation establishes the basic circuit. Sit comfortably with your spine erect, allowing your skeletal structure to support your body without muscular tension. Place your left hand palm upward on your left knee, creating a receptive bowl ready to receive cosmic influx. Place your right hand palm downward on your right knee, establishing connection with earth energy and creating a grounding channel. This simple posture creates a vertical circuit where energy can flow from above through your crown chakra, down through your torso, into your receptive left hand, across to your projective right hand, and down into the earth. Close your eyes and breathe naturally, allowing your awareness to settle into the present moment without forcing or straining. Visualize a sphere of luminous silver light, approximately 6 inches above your left palm. This represents the concentrated essence of divine feminine energy waiting to enter your field. Silver corresponds to Luna consciousness, intuitive wisdom, and receptive power. As you inhale slowly and deeply, imagine this silver light descending into your left palm, entering through the energy center located at the heart of your hand. Feel the sensation of cool, gentle, feminine energy flowing into your physical hand, spreading through your fingers, moving up your arm, crossing your shoulders, and cascading down into your heart center. This is not imagination, but rather visualization guiding actual energetic flow. The boundary between mind and energy dissolves at subtle levels of reality. What you clearly visualize begins manifesting in your energetic field. Hold the energy at your heart center for several breaths, allowing it to accumulate, to build intensity, to saturate the core of your being. Your heart is the bridge between heaven and earth, the meeting place of all polarities, the sacred center where transformation occurs. Then, on an exhalation, consciously direct the energy from your heart down your right arm and out through your right palm into the earth. Feel the grounding, stabilizing sensation of energy, completing the circuit. This is not losing power, but rather establishing flow. Energy that flows becomes available in unlimited supply. Energy that stagnates becomes toxic and depletes your system. Practice this basic circulation for 15 to 20 minutes daily until you can feel the distinct sensation of energy moving through the circuit without strain or doubt. This establishes the foundation for all advanced practice. Your left hand has taught you the sacred art of reception, the capacity to open yourself completely to divine influx without resistance, control, or the ego's constant need to manage reality. Through your left hand practices, you have learned to listen rather than speak, to allow rather than force, to trust the wisdom of universal intelligence rather than clinging desperately to personal will and limited understanding. This receptive capacity is the foundation of all genuine spiritual power because it connects you to resources infinitely greater than your individual self could ever generate. When you stop trying to manufacture spiritual experience through effort and technique, and instead create space for grace to enter naturally, you discover that the universe has been waiting patiently for your surrender, ready to flood your consciousness with gifts beyond anything you could have imagined or requested. Your right hand balances this receptivity with the sacred art of manifestation, the capacity to take divine vision received through left-hand consciousness and anchor it into material reality through decisive action, focused will, and committed implementation. Spiritual realization divorced from practical manifestation remains incomplete, creating otherworldly mystics who may experience transcendent states but fail to bring heaven down to earth, fail to embody divine consciousness in service to the healing and transformation of this world. The integration means you receive guidance through your left hand's connection to intuitive wisdom, then manifest that guidance through your right hand's connection to effective action. You become a conduit, a hollow reed through which divine intelligence flows into material expression, neither controlling nor abdicating responsibility, but rather participating consciously in the co-creative dance between human and divine. This sacred balance accelerates your ascension not as escape from physical reality, but as the progressive divinization of your entire being across all levels of existence. As you stabilize an integrated consciousness, your physical body becomes a more refined instrument for channeling spiritual frequencies. Your emotional body releases toxic patterns and opens to unconditional love. Your mental body transcends limiting beliefs and accesses universal wisdom. And your spiritual bodies activate capacities that most humans do not imagine possible. You become a walking transmission point, your very presence catalyzing awakening in others simply through the coherent field you naturally radiate. This is your destiny, your birthright, and your sacred calling as one who has chosen to remember the truth that Jesus taught and that the Church has hidden for 2,000 years. If this forbidden knowledge awakens recognition in your soul, share it with others ready to reclaim their divine birthright. Commit, I activate the sacred balance to affirm your commitment to this path.